Well, good morning. My name is Willie Lawson. This is the Morning Report. Listen, this is a video to react to some of the comments about the video I did about Jasmine Crockett. And the things that gets, it's funny, the rocks that get thrown and the things that get said about people who disagree with certain other people is kind of amazing, and being a person of my age, I really don't care, but it is. But I find it interesting. I find it interesting the level of vitriol and the level of insult that gets tossed about, and frankly, some of the things that are just outrageously wrong and ridiculous. They just keep getting perpetuated, which is part of the problem. We start getting perpetuated. First of all, I want to address two things in this video. I want to address that I must be getting paid. I want to address that, and the second thing I want to address is the comment about, and I'll put these comments on the screen here. A comment about how school vouchers hurt everybody, because I've spent some time in education. God, every time I say that, I sound like I was in jail or something. I spent a good part of my working adult life involved in education, public education. So some of it in private education, but mostly in public education. So I have a little bit, at least. I don't have your advanced degrees that some of you have, but I have some time working, in and around the public school system. So I feel I have some space to talk there, some space to talk. But the first thing about getting paid, one of the biggest criticisms about people on the right, like myself, who are critical of the left and the Democrat Party, uh, is that we must be getting paid. And I know where this comes from, or I think I know where this comes from, because some people just can't believe, for some reason, that I would have the opinions I would hold the opinions that I hold because of the color of my skin. So the only way that I'd be able to say this kind of stuff publicly is that they must be paying you to say that. Well, I'll tell you a couple of reasons why you should be pretty sure that I'm not getting the check for saying what I'm saying. It's because that I just crossed the 800 subscriber threshold, thanks to the video that I did that everybody got mad about. I just crossed the 800 subscriber threshold. I don't even have enough subscribers to get monetized, and this channel has been around for a long, long time. So my reach is, well, I don't have a reach. I was going to say minuscule, but I don't have a reach. I apparently only reach the people who disagree with me. So I'm not like saying this to rally the troops or any of that kind of foolishness. I'm not. And let me help you. Ever since I decided to publicly get involved with conservative causes and talk to people, is I always told, my Republican friends here, I am not here to recruit people. I am not here to win people over. I am not. Don't put that Barney Fife badge on me, send me out there with my bullet in my pocket, because I'm not going, because that's just not how it is. I will say the things that I believe in. I will analyze things that are happening as I see them, and that'll be it. I'm not asking anybody to change. I'm not asking for anybody to vote for anybody different. I'm just not. If you want to support Jasmine Crockett and what's her name, Bass in L.A., and anybody you want, Maxine Waters, go right ahead, because that's the point. The point, to be able to support anybody you want. That's the point. And I think that a lot of people get so involved in the partisanship, in the blue jersey or the red jersey, that they forget that part. Being an older fellow, he'll be an older guy. Older people, older people always have a story. Well, let me tell you a story. A story. Well, it was the Obama Romney election cycle, where I don't know if you guys remember, but the 7-Elevens were selling coffee cups and one of them had a picture uh, President Obama because he was president at the time running for re-election, and the other had the challenger was Senator Romney. Right? So I walk into my local 7-Eleven with my my Republican self, and I grab a Romney cup. Right? Why I don't know. I should have just grabbed a cup that didn't have a face on it, but I didn't. So I grabbed a Romney cup, and this lady, seemed like a nice lady, uh, was getting coffee too, and she looked at me and she said, "You know, you have the wrong cup." I was like, "What do you mean? The cup you got? It's the wrong cup." As it turned out, she was right because Romney got his ass kicked. But I was like, "Huh." And I said, I said to her, and I'm gonna say it to you. You know what the best thing about your freedom? You know the best thing about your freedom? The freedom that a lot of you in that Jasmine Crockett video are so afraid of losing. The best thing about your freedom is actually your freedom. That's the best thing. Not just the, not just of course, being captive against your will is the worst thing one of the worst things that could ever happen to you. But the second worst thing is to still be captive in your mind, to not be allowed to speak, to not be allowed to say, to not be allowed to think whatever you think is the right thing. That would be worse. That would be worse because you would just be given this illusion of freedom. So, and and well, what did she do? She just looked at me and walked away because apparently I'm a lost cause, and that's fine. That's fine. I mean, there wasn't any big blow up or discussion, and she didn't call me any names to my face. I didn't call her any names because we're grown because we're grown, and there's absolutely no reason to do that. And I think that some people have been gotten involved in this and have forgotten that the best thing about your freedom is actually your freedom and your freedom to think and say and do. These platforms like YouTube and Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn, not LinkedIn so much, but all these other platforms we can come on and and stop your opinion, no matter how crazy your opinion may be. Whether you're still doubting the moon landing, whatever, or that the Earth is not round. Okay, I think that you should just say it. Just say it. The other side of that is that if you say something people disagree with you about, they're going to tell you that they disagree. So that's why I have not deleted any comments, and I'm not going to. I'm not going to turn the comments off. Comment. Um, just like I said, I should be able to have a view, and you can have a view too. This is a public venue, so okay. Um, but I think that's interesting. So the second thing I'm going to talk about real quick in this video is school vouchers. I got a comment here about school vouchers, and I really really want to talk about those because I think that school choice. And I said this to some of my Republican friends who it just went in one ear and out the other because that's what they do. Uh, that school choice is the thing. It is the thing. What I related in the other video is that two people who have something in common are the single mother who lives in the or the single black or brown mother who lives in the projects, and the white lady who lives in a gated community. They really both want the best thing, best educational venue for their child. They do. That's what if they have anything in common, that's what they have in common. So I think being able to and the white mom can has the wherewithal a lot of times in the gated community to send her children to the best schools they can actually afford. A lot of times, my mom didn't have money to send me to private school, or send me to a private Christian school or a parochial school or whatever. We're just at the mercy of the public school that they said that we had to go to at that time because I'm an old fart. There were no charter schools to go to. It was whatever, whatever the public school was, good or bad, I was there. We were able to, through a boatload of sacrifice for a lot of years, all the way up through ninth grade, we were able to send our kid to private Christian school. And even at 34 years old, I think that had paid dividends. I think that had paid dividends. We did not get to use vouchers because there were no vouchers to use. I would have used them because that would have really helped. And my shoulder keeps disappearing. I hate that. Why? Because I'm cheap and I don't have a real green screen. Um, so that would have really been a benefit to our family. They weren't available. We would have used them for sure. And I think the school that we sent him to through middle school, elementary and middle school, would have accepted them. But in any case, let's talk about some of the pros and cons of the voucher program, especially for Black children. Now, some of the cons, and some of these are legitimate, and some of these are ridiculous. Limited access to high quality private schools. If you live in certain areas, getting to that nice private school is really hard because there's no bus that goes there, right? And if you live in a place like where I live, the public transport, the public transportation system is damn near non-existent. So just because you have a voucher doesn't mean you can get your kid there. Because many of the top tier private schools have high tuition costs that vouchers don't fully cover. There's that too. So access to some of these schools don't really happen. Don't really happen because they don't pay the whole thing. For instance, I'm pretty sure that, let's use this example here, that Tampa Preparatory, really fine school in this area, their tuition is more than $12,000 a year. It's more than $15,000 a year. Vouchers don't cover the whole deal, and all the other stuff that you have to pay if you send your kid to private school. Yeah, I mean those folks are tapping you every 15 minutes for $30 here and $40 here and $50 here. Snip, 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 snip. So you have limited access to the top tier schools, but there are a lot of schools that aren't necessarily the top tier private schools that charge a lot of the money. You see a bunch of church schools that you can send your kids to that don't necessarily charge $15,000 a year. Some of them charge maybe $5,000 or $6,000 a year that are really good schools. Okay. The second con that people come up with is the risk of exacerbating segregation. Voucher programs can sometimes contribute to racial and economic segregation, as families with greater resources can better navigate the system, leaving public schools with fewer resources. My kid's not there. You don't need my kid's money. And what they're afraid is and what they say this is because they figure that the only people who will be left, this is the most racist thing people can come up with. They figure the only people who will be left in the public schools will be poor Black people or poor brown people who don't have the wherewithal in their brain to navigate the system. These are the same people who don't think that Black people can get IDs to go vote because we can't navigate the DMV or wherever you happen to be able to get an ID from it, whether it's a driver's license or a state ID or whatever, or passport or whatever. One of the things they say, there's a lack of accountability for private schools. Unlike public schools, private schools receiving voucher students may not be subject to the same regulations regarding curriculum, teacher qualification, or standardized testing. Well, one of the things that I think that a lot of the private schools have over public schools is the lack of standardized testing. We've had those discussions. We continue to have those discussions about a lot of those tests are not set up for a lot of our Black and brown students anyway. So all they do is hold them back. We've been having these discussions for a long, long time about how deleterious for actually a lot of students, all the standardized testing is. There is, in some of the schools, yes, there is a question about teacher qualifications. But the good school, all you have to do is ask. It's funny. It's not like they're hiding it because they can't hide it. You go to, XYZ school and say, are all your teachers certified? They have to tell you the truth. You don't have to have a master's in education to navigate that system. All you have to do is ask the question. They got to tell you the truth. That's it. You ask about standardized testing. And in a lot of private church schools, you know what, you can actually ask them, what curriculum are you using? A lot of people who are familiar with church schools, especially in the Baptist community, know about the Abeka curriculum. I think it's spelled A-Beka, Abeka. Am I right? And that curriculum is readily available. She has a really good curriculum. It's relatively. I mean, it's really available. You can read it yourself. So a lot of these schools will tell you this stuff, and a lot of those, and if they don't have a specific curriculum that they work from, then you avoid them and you go to the next one. Again, you don't have to have a master's in education to navigate the system. You really, really don't. Um, so when people say that because somebody else isn't watching them, the fact of the matter is that your child is your responsibility, and you should be asking these questions anyway. When I was teaching, when I was hired and working in the school system, especially my early years, in the mid '80s, when there was a teacher, there's always been a teacher shortage. I worked in a school where we had teachers who were teaching they called it out of field because there was just no one else to do it. Where somebody would take T payroll, and those of you who've been in education know what T payroll is, and they would teach completely out of the regular field. So you might have a math teacher who has a physical science class teaching out of field because you don't have another science teacher to handle that unit. So you don't have a teacher who is certified K-12 in science. You have a math teacher who is certified K-12 in math, but not in science. Now, a lot of times they'll do that with a promise to earn. There's all sorts of things. So I want to make sure that those of you who are watching to criticize know that I know what I'm talking about here. Because I've seen it. I've spent some time doing that. So that question should always be asked. Number 4, potential for discrimination. That's what people use as a con. Some private schools, particularly religious institutions, may have admission policies that disproportionately exclude certain students, including those with disabilities from lower income backgrounds. Now, because we're trying to have a rational discussion here, trying so hard with y'all. A lot of private schools don't have programs for those kids who are suffering with some sort of disability. There's not a program for emotionally handicapped children, like any EH programs, SL what they used to call SLD, specific learning disabilities, and those kinds of things in a lot of private schools. They're not. I think more and more we're starting to see that, but in general, no. Um, Most schools, though, however, if you have the money and you can pass the entrance exam, if they have an entrance exam, you can get in. The whole point of vouchers is for people who are from low income backgrounds. And if you're worried about the potential for discrimination, well, isn't that life? Isn't that life? Yes, there's potential for discrimination. There's potential for discrimination by going to the 7-Eleven. So that particular con doesn't really hold water for me. Okay. It drains resources from public schools. When students leave for private schools, public schools lose funding, which can further weaken struggling schools that still may serve many Black students. Here's the problem. Private schools on par spend less per student than public schools, and on par, on average, have better educational outcomes. So this idea, and you'll hear this, and a lot of people believe it. This idea that public schools fail because they don't have money, that they don't spend enough money per student, is not. It's just not true. They may fail because they spend way too much in administration. That's probably more than anything because there's a lot more administrators. Where you go to a private school, there may be a principal, an assistant principal, and a dean, and maybe a counselor, and that's admin. That's admin. They've got 600 students. They got a principal, an assistant principal, maybe a counselor, and maybe a dean. There may be 4 or 5 people in administration for 600 kids, not 12. That makes a big difference. A lot more of those funds, those money, go to student educational resources. Maybe public schools, maybe, can take a page out of that book. Now, I know all the people who are teachers who are saying you don't get paid enough. I know you're going to come at me. That's fine. And when I work for the school district here, I didn't get paid enough either. And I definitely didn't get paid enough to put up with the things that we had to put up with. Definitely. But frankly, be honest with you, I don't I don't know anybody who doesn't think that they deserve more money for what they do. Do you? Do you know anybody who says, "Hey, man, I don't do much. I get paid. It's good. It's fine. My job at the heart." Do you know anybody like that? I That's great if you do, because I personally do not. And if you worked in this, for a school district, and you've been at more than one school, you know that life at one school can be radically different than life at another school. After I left my first school, every other school seemed like cake, much easier. I still don't believe that I was getting paid as much as I think I thought that I deserved. But frankly, from the first 4 years to the last 11 years, the last 11 years were a lot easier. And by then I was getting a little raise. I mean, a little raise, minuscule raise, teeny beeny, itsy bitsy raise, right? So anyway, so that whole drains resources thing, all that happened was that money that this kid was bringing in FTE, that kid's taking that his money and himself. So that money that he was bringing for FTE should have been for that kid. He's taking it and going to this school over here. This school doesn't need that money because that kid who was supposed to be receiving those sources or those resources isn't there. So there's no drain. So drain. In a perfect voucher system, I'm just taking the money that they were going to spend on me with me. That's all. While some studies show benefits, I'm going to talk about benefits. Others do say that vouchers do not perform significantly better than their public school peers. Well, some do, and some don't. Obviously, you have public schools that do. You have public schools who do great work. A lot of my friends are public school teachers. Isn't that what everybody says? Some of my best friends are white. Some of my best friends are Mexican. All of my best friends either worked, because we're getting to the age where we're getting retired, either worked or are currently working in the public schools. That's all there is to it. So yes, a lot, almost all my friends are attached to the public school system. And my friends do a hell of a job. And there are schools in the public sector that do a great job. Some of them are in nicer, more affluent areas, and some of them are not. Some of them are in challenging areas, and some of these schools do a hell of a job. But the fact of the matter is, some of these schools are booty, straight booty, and everybody knows it. And it just seems wrong that I don't have a choice where I send my child. I don't have a choice. Now, when I was saying that for the first, let's see, all the way up through eighth grade, we sent our kid to private school since he was in K3. And all those years, we were paying taxes to send our kid to. I mean, to we're paying taxes and paying for school taxes, right? Still, we were paying the increased sales tax that was funding public schools while my kid wasn't there. My kid wasn't even there. We're paying all the people and almost all the people who are sending their kids to private or parochial schools are still paying property taxes, and in our area, property taxes fund schools, and sales taxes. They're still paying. So the drainage of funds, I'm not sure what they're talking about, because all the people who send their kids to private school are paying for private school. Not just vouchers, but they're still paying. People's kids who have never darkened the door of a public school are send their money every year because I just paid property taxes. Don't have a kid in school. Haven't had a kid in school since 2008. A long time. A damn long time ago, right? Paid for school. So this whole idea that it drains money is it's foolish. It's ridiculous. It's outrageous. I think that parents should have choice because, frankly, like I said before, children. I mean, my son's education was my responsibility. I could partner with the teacher, but his education was my responsibility because he was my responsibility. So why can't I have choice? Vouchers give parents and families access to a wider range of schools, including those with better academic outcomes. They may have safer environments because crap. We live in a sinful, fallen world, and crap happens everywhere. Right? So maybe safer environments or a specialized program. Even why should and point two is they can escape a failing school. So many urban public schools, like I talked about, um, are struggling, absolutely struggling. Some of them are underfunded. Now, I happen to live in a place where we have what they call centralized funding, and I don't know, where you live, but where I live, they have centralized funding, which means that all the money goes downtown and gets evenly distributed to the schools. So everybody has pretty much the same thing. It hasn't always been that way, but it's that way now. But we talked about where's the money come from. The money comes from, and where I live, property taxes. You're a property owner. You pay your property tax, and some of that money goes to libraries, and some of it goes to roads, and some of it goes to, and most of it goes to schools, whether you have a kid in school or not. So that kid who has a voucher, who's moved the money with him to another school, it's okay because I'm paying for another kid. Well, me and a bunch of other people are paying for another kid because we don't have one there. Anyway, it allows people to escape those schools that aren't doing well. And if that school has classroom sizes that are too big, moving kids out makes the class size smaller. And this is something that we've talked about in education forever. Class sizes are too big. What's a first grader? What's a first grade teacher going to do with 35 first graders and no assistant, and no aide? Yeah, that's too many. That class should be half that size. Half that size. And then maybe they can get something done. So this is a much longer, more in-depth conversation than I even thought about having. But somebody brought, I mean, somebody in the comments brought this up. I'll put that comment here on the screen. But that vouchers don't work. They most certainly do work, and there's a potential for higher academic achievement. A potential. Some studies suggest that Black students in private schools, particularly those using vouchers, perform better in standardized tests. Now, the standardized tests I'm talking about at the end of the ACT and the ACT and the SAT. This constant barrage of standardized tests, I really don't like that, and have higher graduation rates, especially from high school, and may have higher graduation rates not because they're in hockey types of private school. They have higher graduation rates because their parents value education. That same kid in a worse school would probably graduate. Maybe two of their buddies might not, but that kid will probably graduate. But what are they graduating with? And the parents should be able to make that choice. I don't know why anybody would be like, I can't make that choice for my own kid. Why would you deny me that choice? Why would you deny me that freedom? Remember, what's the best thing about your freedom? Your freedom. So why would you deny me that freedom? And the fifth, obviously, is increased parental involvement. The ability to choose a school often encourages parents to be more engaged in their kids' education. And my time working in schools, that was the key. No matter if I was at Hasitati High School, and I got a chance to do that. I worked in magnet schools. I worked in traditional middle schools. Kind of middle school kids. They about drove me to they about drove me to death. They about drove me out of my mind, but I did it. But the parents that were positively involved in their kids' education, those kids did better. The parents that you could get on the phone and you could say, Billy needs, please make sure that Billy does his homework. What he has tonight is slope intercept. Ask him about slope intercept. Billy comes to school and says, did you call my mom? Mm-hmm. I said, how do you know? She asked me about my homework. Yes. Me and your mom and your dad are in cahoots to make sure that you learn something in my class. Those kids did better. They just did better. So if you have parents who are more likely to be involved in a positive way in their kids' education, they'll do better. And if they're in an educational environment of the parents choosing that they hope to be better and they can afford it because of the vouchers, or if not vouchers, a charter school or whatever, that's really a good thing. I don't understand why some of you would take that choice from me, why you would take that freedom away from me. I don't understand why you wouldn't want, deserving black families or brown families not to have that. I don't get it. I don't understand why you don't want that. Why don't you want that? Now I could be completely cynical and say it's because of unions and the way that some school districts are set up. The fewer kids, the fewer teachers. and teachers may lose their jobs in certain public schools. Maybe because the kids aren't there to fulfill the units, which is what they call it, right? Call it units, right? And the teachers may lose their job. And if teachers lose their job in certain schools, then the unions don't get the union dues and may lose money. So the drainage of funds isn't necessarily drainage of funds to school districts. Again, the cynical me says it's a drainage of funds to educational unions or teacher unions. I'm not saying educational because not all of them are educational. Well, anyway, I've addressed those 2 points that I wanted to address in this video. Thank you for your comments. I ain't got no problem with your comments. Again, if you think that Jasmine Crockett and Karen Bass and Maxine Waters and AOC, Elizabeth Warren, if you think they're right, if you think that, and I think, or Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries, any of them, you have the freedom to do that. It's great, and obviously you have the freedom to comment on my videos. That's great. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring enough to watch. Thank you for caring enough to comment. I don't know if you're trying to get me straight or you're trying to throw a rock at me. It doesn't even matter really. Thanks. All right, we got to get out of here because I'm looking forward to daylight savings time. In just it's 11:30, just a few hours. Daylight savings time. Can't wait. I love it. I love that tomorrow night at 7 o'clock the sun will still be up. Yes, can't wait. Anyway, we got to get out of here, make room for somebody else. So until we see you again, go out there and learn something, love somebody, and for goodness sakes, y'all take care of yourself. I will see you when I see you. Bye bye now.